Thank you all for joining us for our Golden Conversations. This week we are coming to you from another internet space, and this is Zoom. Unfortunately, YouTube did not work well for us this evening, but as my beautiful seniors would say, when something no work, you try something else. And we want to ensure that the message of caregivers, geriatric care goes out to our wonderful community. So thank you all who are joining us for the replay. We appreciate your support and we appreciate you coming online to stay with us, to share with us, to communicate with us on another Tuesday evening. So as you would have guessed it, this week we are looking at the caregiver's perspective. We will be talking to a caregiver who will bring some information, some insight, some knowledge as it pertains to taking care of our beloved seniors. And also for seniors, what should you look for in a caregiver? That is very important. So none other than someone who is very accomplished in this area is President of the Practical Nurses Association, Miss Stephanie Powell, who has 30, yes, almost the number of years as I have been alive. She has 30 years of experience when it comes to geriatric care. Thank you so much, Ms. Powell, for joining us for Golden Conversations. We are indeed happy to have you as you will share your expertise with us.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
I want to just kickstart immediately. Tell us about the Practical Nurses Association of Jamaica. We know they've been around for decades. What is so important about this association for healthcare in general in Jamaica?
All right. Good evening again, everyone. The Practical Nurse Association of Jamaica was started in 1990, April 17th to be exact, in 1990 by a gentleman who I just sadly heard that he died a couple of days ago, Mr. Neville Atkinson, who was a civil servant with Minister of Water and Housing. He went to a certain nursing home and, he was a priest then, and he was just, talking to the nurses there, praying with them and stuff. And they were having issues and they were relating to him. And he decided to take all those issues to the National Workers Union, where he met Errol Lynch. And he decided to help him to form this association and to get the nurses affiliated to the National Workers Union. And that's where we started. Also with another gentleman called Mr. Myers, Jack Myers, who is also deceased. And they started the association, and I became a part of this association. 1994, I turned off this phone, sorry. 1994, I became a part of the association as a regular member, traveling from Mandeville, because I was born in Mandeville. I used to travel up to the meetings, and then I became GenSec until I became president. And for these years, I've been working at places like Medical Associates and all of that. And this association, what we're trying to do is to get practical nurses recognized by the government of this country. Because even though we are doing so much work, working in government entities as well, we are not recognized by the government of this country. So that's one of our main aim, is to get recognition. But there's some standards.
What type of recognition? Because I think once someone has come in contact with the hospital or even the clinics that we call primary care agents in Jamaica, you would know a practical nurse. So define for us.
Okay. What happened is that most practical nurses don't work with the government. Most of them work in private entities, doctor's office, nursing homes, and even people's home, right, to take care of the elderly there. We don't have, we are working a lot right now with a fixed salary, to get a fixed set salary, because everybody's doing their own thing. We don't get benefits, except if we're working with a doctor and he said, okay, I'm going to do a health card for you. We don't get anything.
So practical nurses is not a registered legal profession in, okay.
So that's what we are working at. So what I know that if we're not standardized, we won't be recognized. So we try to reach out to some of the schools, but then over the years, we try to get them to do one curriculum, but because they are independent schools, teaching their own things, we got in touch with Heart Trust NTA. They started a curriculum, as we were talking before, and we try to get all of this online. But some of these practical nurses out there who are working some are caregivers, some work in the doctor's office, wherever they work. They're not united. So because they're not united, a lot of things not happening. So that we are hoping that we could get everybody together, because we have schools who are just teaching caregiving, geriatric. You call it geriatric care. So some people are saying, oh, they're not practical nurses because they were only trained as geriatric nurses. But the geriatric nurses, it's not that it's different, but then it's because the practical nurses have gone through a more training, longer length training than the geriatric care. So as I said, association is just like a body for practical nurses who are striving for the recognition.
Okay. It's nice that you mentioned that practical nurses cover more than just geriatric care.
Yes.
So you yourself have been in geriatric care for 30 years. What is it that you love so much about caring for our seniors?
I love seniors. So I learned from them. I have a passion for seniors.
How did you get started in geriatric care?
Wow. What happened? My grandfather died in my arms, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't help him. I didn't know what to do. And I promised myself, nobody else, none of my seniors whom I love or close to will ever die again, and I don't know what happened. And I pledged that to myself. And it was after I had my third child, I decided to do practical nursing. As a single mother, I didn't have help with the fathers. So I decided to go to school and to get the knowledge so I can help people whom I love.
At what age was that when you decided to go back to school to get your practical nurses license?
I got pregnant in high school. So my first child when I was 15. So I had 2 after that. So I was just about maybe 18, 19 when I decided to do practical nursing. Then when I started practical nursing school, I had the 3 kids to look after. I had an afternoon job. So I have to do the kids in the morning, go to practical nursing school, then leave school, go to that job from 3 until 10, then go home to my children and to do all of my chores and stuff. And here I am today.
Thank you so much for balancing it all and giving us a pathway that we can actually use as an example. You mentioned not knowing what one of your patients die from when it comes to geriatric care. So I want to find out from you, why is it so important for a caregiver to see the patient as a friend and not as an employer?
Honestly, seeing them as friends is that they'll confide in you, because seniors, when things are happening to them, if you're not close to them or they don't trust you, they won't tell you what's happening. So once they love, they might not just love you now as they see you working with them, but once they gain that confidence and they can trust you, then they'll open to you and tell you whatever is happening. Some of the times they'll say, okay, I'm having, say for example, nurse, we're not feeling well. What happened to you now? My head hurt me. Then you can talk to them. Once you started talking to them, sometimes the head is not really hurting, but they just need somebody to confide in, somebody to talk to. And once they're having issues, and once they start talking to the person, and you might be able to encourage them too. And there's some little things that you can say to them. And once you're saying it to them, they say, okay, maybe they'll say, all right, I can trust this one. And they'll open to you. They watch you. So the things that you do around them. So once they're confident in you, then they'll open to you and tell you what's happening to them. Even though they don't know exactly what is happening, they'll tell you that something is happening.
So the caregiver plays the role of a friend and not a employee, not a helper.
Has to. Yeah.
But a number of caregivers are also helpers within the same work environment.
Yeah. But their own children are caregivers because they're caring for their parents. So they are caregivers. Maybe because they're not trained, but because they have to do everything for them. It's caring for them. Still taking them to the doctor, you're caring for them. Getting the medication, you're caring for them. Getting the food, even simply getting the food for them. You might not be the one preparing the food, but you go out and you work and you get the food for them. Mm-hmm. So you're still caregivers for them.
I want us to talk about why it is so important to distinguish between a caregiver and a helper. Why is it critical for the children, for the loved ones to understand that there is a difference between the two?
All right. For me, the caregiver, maybe you're trained. Once you're a trained person, whether you're trained in practical nursing or geriatric care, you know, you're to be caring for that person, meeting the entire needs of that person. The helper, she's gonna be he or she's gonna be the person that takes care of the house, the house management, looking after your laundry, doing the house, doing your cooking. You know, yes, she can sit with you and chat with you for a while because she's there doing all those stuff. You can sit and chat with you. But the general care for the patient is gonna go to the geriatric care person or the practical nurse. You know, even though I notice nowadays some people, because their elders get old, they can't afford to employ somebody else. They just ask the helper to look at mommy. You know, sometimes they'll bathe them, they'll change them, but they still, you know, don't have the knowledge. You know, that you've been taught. So, well, Google, some people go on Google now and I look what to do, when to do this. Because some of these elderly at home, they might have a little bed sore and you don't know. Because some of them are so secretive. And this again, where the friendship is if they're so secretive that things will be happening to them and you won't know. Because if you're not bathing them, you won't see. If you're not feeding them, you won't realize they're not chewing properly. If you're not giving them mouth care, you won't know that if the tablet is still underneath the tongue or it's in the corner of their mouth or the food is still in the corner of their mouth. You understand? So, you know, you have to, once you're trained, you know what to look for.
So the duties, so what you're saying then is that the duties of a helper can impede in providing that ultimate care for a senior.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Because, you know, remember, you know, geriatric care, you know, this is like the planning and the coordinating, you know, for the care of, this is what most geriatric care, you know, your plan, your care, you know, coordinate for the elder, for the physical needs or mental needs, and to improve the needs of, you know, the quality of care that these people get, you know, and to, you know, even to help them to be independent, because not because they're seniors, they can't be independent. And this is something that I don't like, when you try to take away the independence of a senior. I hate when you do that. Not because your mother, it might look a little feeble and so you say, okay, all right, I have to put on mommy's dress. No, give her the dress. Mommy, can you put your dress on? She might say, oh no, I can't, you know, can you? Then I said, you say, can I help you? Because when you say, can I help you? Then they'll know that they're still in charge. But when you're gonna just take away the dress from them, put on the dress, you don't even allow them to choose the dress that they want to put on. You don't allow them to choose the shoes they want to put on. It's not fair, because they used to do all this for themselves. And once this is taken away from them, they're not going to feel comfortable. But if you're not close to them, you're not going to know that either.
So as the Practical Nurses Association of Jamaica, how does the association go about trying to inform and educate the loved ones, the dependents of seniors, citizens, that that the geriatric care is separate from being a helper?
What the association does, once you call for practical nurses and say, someone to care for your loved ones, what I advise you, I give you advices about what my nurses would do and what they would, you understand? Mm-hmm. And then once my nurses are there, they know, they will be able to talk to the family member, because what we do, because it's honestly, I must say, it's not all the caregivers that are part of the association that goes out, that work in homes.
Right.
So when they do call the association, we'll tell them exactly what is the job description and what they are, and I always tell them, make sure your nurses are taken care of, because they are the ones looking after your loved ones. They have to be comfortable. Because if you're doing a night shift, and say, for example, your grandma not sleeping well at night, most senior citizens don't sleep at night, and they have a little routine in the night, that practical nurse must be able to have a comfortable seat where they can sit and watch them. Because I'm not sending anybody to sleep. If you can sleep, if they are sleeping, then you might get a little snooze. But I'm not sending you to work to sleep. Mm-hmm. Because most of these seniors, especially those with dementia, they don't sleep. And they only want to see your eyes closed. Whether you're sleeping, yes or no, they're gone. And I've gotten cases where people call the association, and these are not our nurses. Nurses are there looking after patients, Alzheimer's patient, because they're not that observant. The patient, even they fall asleep, patient get up and walk over them and gone wherever. You understand? So we try to groom our nurses to be really observant, to watch over these people. Worse, especially night cases, because when you're doing nights, that's the time that they do everything.
Wow.
When you least expect, trust me. You have some who they have like a schedule that, say for example, depends on the medication that they're getting. Say for example, they're getting like, all right, let's use Lasix, which is a to release fluid from the body. Some of them wake like every 2 hours or every 3 hours. So if they're getting up out of the bed, you have to be there to assist them to go to the bathroom. You don't want them falling in the bathroom, because that's where a lot of accidents happen.
We want to move on to the point of the caregiver burnout, because what you just mentioned a while ago about being there for them at night, paying attention to the medication and so forth like that. We have seen studies have shown that the caregiver themselves can go through mental and physical stress by just doing geriatric care. So who is taking care of the caregiver?
That's it. But the caregivers have to take care of themselves. They have to take care of themselves. Because when you have a patient with dementia, that if she remove her, if she have indentures and she remove her dentures and she can't find them, she's going to blame you. You're going to have to go search for that. But then suppose that, for example, that person don't want you to go into their bedroom all by yourself. You're going to have like pressure. They have some of them, you can't touch nothing for them. And everything you do, you're wrong. And this is why I always say, try to be friends with these people. I can share an experience with you. I had a patient, she had dementia, and she would go in the kitchen, put stuff in the microwave, turn it on, burn it up, because she put it out there and it's the wrong thing she put in the microwave and it get burned. And then she would take it and throw it in the bin and then accuse you of doing it. And this is because of the dementia, Alzheimer's dementia. You understand? You have some that will fight you. And I mean, really fight you. So even though you said you're going to be friends with them, sometimes they don't remember that you are their friend. And sometimes you have to be gentle with them. You understand? Because if you're not patient, if you're not gentle, it's not going to be easy. And if you're easily frustrated, I don't think you should be doing geriatric care.
Because it takes patience.
It takes patience. Because my patient, she would get out of there. I remember one day she went through the garage. They said, "Oh, this is my house. You can't tell me where to go." And I was like trying to hide the keys because I know she was going out. And she decided that I need my keys and I want the keys, and she started searching for the keys. And I didn't want to her to pull the house down. So I just put the key on the table and she put, oh, this is where it was all the time. And she opened the door and she went out. And I had to stand there and watch her. And when I just started looking after her, she didn't trust me. So it's like everything she do, she would like, look around and look. So I decided to watch her, and she went outside and started walking down on the main road. And I had to be walking behind cars, hiding behind cars, just to, one day I said, how am I going to deal with this? And I said, God, how am I going to deal with this? And the following morning, she got up, I gave her breakfast and everything. She was so nice and up and ready. And I said to her, can I walk with you this morning? I'm tired of sitting in the house. Is it okay? And she said, would you? Just here, would you? And I was like, yes, I would. She said, okay. And she said, let's go. I said, let me get my walking shoes. And I put my walking shoes on. I had on my working shoes. I put my walking shoes on. And I walk with her, and she started telling me everything about where she walks every day, everybody who lives in that house, who live in that house, and who is her friend, and who don't like animals, and she started telling me everything.
Wow.
And I said, okay. I started gaining her confidence. Went back home, and she was tired, sitting in the garage, and I said, oh, your feet look so red. You're tired, your feet are tired. And she was like, oh, yeah. I said, can I soak them in some water for you and let them feel better? And she was like, would you? I said, yes, I would. I said, I'm here to care for you. And believe you me, every time she walked, she would like some water to soak her feet. And I had to soak her feet. Oh, yeah. So you have to love what you're doing.
Right. To be a caregiver.
Have to love what you're doing. Yeah.
What recommendations do you have for caregivers who are going through the process of burnout on the job?
This is where again I go where I said, whenever you're working, you don't have one caregiver working. You cannot do that because the shifts are 12 hours. You have some people who do live-in, and when you do live-in work, you're always there 24/7. So you're still working. You understand? So I advise, if you're going to work with elderly, as a caregiver, you need to have another partner, somebody else, another nurse or two, who say, okay, I can only work 5 days. This is what my body can take, 5 days. If you can take 7 days, take 7 days, and then say, okay, I'll be off next week. So this, you understand? So every time you have somebody to back you up. You alone don't do it. It's not going to work. You're going to work all that money, and at the end of the day, you can't spend it because the doctor is going to get all of it.
Well said.
I don't recommend living, but at the same time, I don't recommend children to send their parents to homes, like nursing homes and stuff, because they function better in their environment. It's not that I'm saying that, hey, I'm not going to send anybody to a nursing home. If you have to, you'll have to. But if it's a situation where mommy likes hair, mommy likes the environment at home, she functions better. If you're going to take her and send her to a nursing home, she's going to either die, or her dad is going to either die, or you're just going to get frustrated, just not doing what they normally do. So I recommend that if you have them at home, you want to keep them in the home environment, get 2 or 3 nurses, don't get one.
Okay.
One's going to be burnt out.
Okay. As we seek to wrap up this interview, I would like for you to provide some words of encouragement for persons who are considering geriatric care.
All right. As I said, if you don't love it, if you don't love seniors, don't do it. And if you're just going into it for the money, don't even think about it. Because if you don't get paid, you ain't going to treat the patient right. And if you're not compensated as how you would want it to be compensated, you're not going to care for that person how you want to care for the person. So, for you going out there, you have to love it. Have a passion for it.
And what are the steps to be taken in terms of qualifications? I get the understanding, as we talked earlier about, there's no standardization or regularization of the Nurses Association of Jamaica and practical nurses. Practical nurses, right, of Jamaica. So what are the qualifications for the steps to be taken for someone interested in geriatric care?
All right, remember, they're going to go to an independent school, and every school have their own criteria. So I can like only tell you that if you finish, say for example, you finish high school, there's nothing for you to do, you have your subjects. If you don't have all your subjects, try go evening class and get them. But if you're going to do geriatric care, call the schools, find out, they'll tell you what you need. But once you get your sciences, do your math, do your English, trust me, it will help. But if you know you're an 18-year-old leaving high school, don't see what you're gonna do. You say, oh, I love nursing, so I'll go practical nursing school. I don't push you to do that. Go do your subjects. The country need registered nurses. The country need theater nurses. You understand? So you once you finish, go back to school, get your subjects, and go into nursing school.
Okay.
Some people use the practical nursing schools as stepping stones to go into registered nursing because they don't want to sit at home. But everybody can't afford that. Not everybody can afford that.
Right, you know? Right. All right. So in 3 minutes, giving you 3 minutes to provide word of advice to children, relatives who are seeking a caregiver for their elderly relative.
Okay, my advice to them. Make sure once you're going to get a caregiver for your parents, try to get them out of reputable places. You can call the association, and there's some, you call it employment agencies that people go to. But for me, it's just that I don't like that, because the employment agency get most of the money and the nurse don't get the money. And once the nurse don't not getting paid properly, they're not going to care for your persons. And people who are properly trained and are caring for your elderly, what I would love for them to do is just pay them properly so that they can care for them. People need funding, and once you get your money, you'll care for them. You'll care for your elders. So, you know, I always love for them to make sure they're getting people who are also confidential and trustworthy. So I always recommend it that you call 2 or 3 or 4, up to 5 persons, interview them, do a good interview.
References.
And then you can choose. You can get your references, but still do your interviews. Because sometimes you get references and don't trust me. It still doesn't help. You have to interview them yourself. And then you have questions to ask them. How would you do this? How would you do that? Suppose mommy says she don't want this, the breakfast. Are you still gonna give it to her? Elderlies they do have their rights as well. So I don't encourage you to force them to do what they don't want to do. You just encourage them, but don't force them. Children don't force your parents to go into a nursing home. Encourage them, but don't force them.
Good. Okay, that is all the time we have for this week's Golden Conversations. We thank you for joining us, and we remind you that we come online every 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month to discuss a critical matter that is of importance to our nation's senior citizens. So we thank you, Ms. Stephanie Powell, President of the Practical Nurses Association, to have joined us in this important discussion on caregivers for the geriatric care industry.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome.